What is up, most distinguished patrons of this channel? In today's video, we are going to be diving into MIG welder maintenance, and we're going to talk about what you need to actually do to tune up your MIG machine. With that said, let's get into it. So this video is a direct result of a couple questions that I got asked on the channel, along with a post that I saw on the internet, and I'll put it up right now, of a guy dealing with a problem with feeding. And it got me thinking, you know what, it's time to do a video like this, because I wanted to do a video like this 2 years ago. And well, here we are 2 years late, but at least we're getting to it. Anyways, MIG welding is an awesome process, but unfortunately, the machines themselves that you use for MIG welding require a lot more maintenance than TIG and stick. And unfortunately, again, most people never do the maintenance. So yes, you out there are probably guilty of not maintaining your MIG welder, as am I, even though I don't do that much MIG welding. And when you don't maintain it, it can be unbelievably frustrating because you wind up with feeding issues, with weldability issues, like it just sputters, it doesn't work good, and it just can be a really big nightmare. And I am not lying. The most frustrated I've ever been dealing with a welder is with suitcase feeders on a job site where you hook them to a power source. I cannot tell you how many times I have showed up to a job site that had a suitcase feeder, been told everything was good to go, and I make one 1-inch test weld and realize everything is not good to go. It's so common. Wrong drive rollers. The whole feeding mechanism is like wore out. There's dust and debris in with the rollers and where the wire goes into the liner. Poor liners just worn out. Wrong contact tips. I have seen it all, and it's crazy because I don't know if in welding schools they don't teach people how to set up a MIG welder, or for that case, a suitcase feeder. But I'm telling you, like, if you go on a job site with somebody else's MIG welder, good luck. You already know, just before you even use it, it's not going to be right. So I'm going to show you how to make it right. The first thing of concern, you really need to take a look at the component parts of the torch. If your nozzle is full of debris, clean it. If it's wore out and just flat out trash, it's melted back, just replace it. It does matter. If this thing is not at least reasonably solid and clean, it will affect the quality of your welds. Another very common, probably the most common mistake I've seen on MIG welders is people using the wrong contact tip. Now, technically, yes, you can still MIG weld with 035 wire with an 045 tip. It does actually work. The problem is it affects the amperage and the heat input slightly. So your settings may be a little bit inconsistent. That's why I recommend, and I think if you contacted Lincoln and all the other companies, use the contact tip that's correct for the wire size. I can't count how many times I switched between wires and left the wrong contact tip in. And yeah, like I said, it'll work, but double check before you start welding. Make sure you have a decent contact tip in that is the correct size for your wire. Another important aspect is to look at the parts at the end of your torch. This has a little O-ring here. If that goes bad, you can have gas that escapes out the back of the nozzle, or it can pull oxygen from around the nozzle in, and it can contaminate your weld. These are consumables. If you do a fair amount of MIG welding every month or two, you should probably be looking at replacing this at least annually. If you get a nick in this and it starts leaking, all bets are off. You'll probably be thinking you got a bad cylinder of gas or contaminated wire, something, and it could be something as stupid as this. Likewise, this little phenolic resin insulator here, make sure that this is not cracked or missing. You want to have this on there. One of the things that does is it helps isolate the copper or the brass nozzle from other parts on this, and it prevents, again, spatter from getting in to smoke that O-ring there. Without this in place, it's very common as you're welding, if this nozzle touches the metal, it ends up sticking and welding, and that's because your isolation is bad. And if you look at this, there's an actual fiberglass insulator in there that separates what runs on the threads on this from the outside of this. So if at any point that ends up shorting out due to that bad isolator here, or just spatter on the inside of this nozzle, it's going to cause you problems. So replace the stuff if it's bad. Now, this particular MIG gun is a little bit different than a lot of them you might have because this is a Spraymaster 250. It's designed for spray welding, and therefore it's a little bit heavier duty and a little bit different of a design. I don't believe that this comes off. Maybe it does. You got to pull this collar. Maybe it's pinned on. But this piece is also replaceable. Typically, you wouldn't need to, but this does not hold the liner in. It's going to be a little tough for you to see, but the liner that the wire runs through comes all the way out to here. When you put a new liner in, oftentimes the liner's far longer, like by a foot, and you cut it to trim it to fit. And you want it to be cut to where when you put the contact tip in, that it's touching or very close to the contact tip. If you cut the liner too long and then shove it in, what'll end up happening as you move the MIG whip, it's going to end up pinching the wire because it's too long. Likewise, if you put it in and you cut it too short, now the wire is going to go through basically the liner to the tip, and it may end up bunching up in there and cause feeding issues. So again, get that liner cut to the right length, and I'll show you, we'll actually pull the liner out of this. This particular gun has a set screw here. I'm 99.9% sure that that actually retains the liner in this. So you have to loosen that in order to pull the liner out, and the liner gets removed into the MIG machine. Here's the inside of my ESAB Rebel 235. Now, this is typical of most like decent level MIG machines. Yours may look a little bit different, and if something in this video doesn't make sense for your machine, consult your manual. I generally keep all my drive rolls and tips right in the machine in a case, pretty handy, and I also keep some desiccant in here to help keep the moisture levels down so things don't rust, including the wire. Now, I already removed the wire out of here just to save some time, and you're going to want to do that if you're working on your own welder as well. So the first thing you want to do is open up your drive rollers. You may have a quad roller setup. This is only a 2-roller. One is a idler, a bogey wheel. The other one is the driven wheel. The driven wheel I'm going to take off, and I want you to look at this. Hopefully that's in focus, but this drive roll has a ton of crap in it, and it's very common with drive rollers to get stuff in there, especially with flux core. You want to take and clean all of that out with a stainless or brass brush. Get that all cleaned. You may need a little pick depending on how much it's stuck in there, but the more crap that's in there, the worse the feeding is going to be. Once again, you always want to make sure that you have the right drive rolls in the machine before you start welding. It's very common that I would switch processes with this machine, wire types, and then I'm an idiot and forget to swap the little drive roll, and then it doesn't work very well. So be mindful about that. Now, this particular machine has this little guy here that's on the input side to the drive rollers that the wire runs through. This is a consumable part. If this wears excessively, then you can have feeding issues where the wire comes in and possibly misses the groove in a roller. So if these look excessively wore, like you can take the wire and there's a lot of slop, and yours happens to have one that's replaceable, it's in your best interest to replace it. It's also in your best interest to clean this idler roller off. This has a lot of debris on it, and brush it off, maybe take a rag with some acetone and just wipe it off to try and clean up that as much as possible. Now, this particular brass insert on the output side of the feed rollers is removable, and it also is a wearable item. You may be able to get replacements for yours. Some machines, this is all part of the liner. So again, consult your manual if you're not exactly sure on what you have. These guys have little O-rings in them. Very, very important that these get replaced and don't leak. Gas can escape here, and then again, you can get porosity issues. So now that we inspected that plug, the O-rings look okay. I'm going to pull the MIG gun right out the front. And we have yet more O-rings that can leak and cause problems for you. Now, this has a set screw in here that retains the liner here, so we need to loosen that up, and then we should be able to pull the liner all the way through. So a couple things here. One, this big set screw that was easily visible, that's what clamps and holds this neck in place. There's a smaller set screw that actually holds the liner more or less in here. that you got to back out. Now, I almost forgot to mention on this, because this is a gun that can have the part swap for different necks, it's removable. And guess what? Another O-ring that can leak. So if you're doing like a 1 year, well, let's say 3 or 4 or 5 year tune-up and you've been having issues with your machine, this is yet another O-ring that should probably be replaced. If it leaks, you got problems. Now, the cool thing is with this particular MIG gun is you can actually swap to what they call swan necks, where it's a flexible neck, and then you can position it any way that you would like. So that's a pretty cool option. A lot of the standard cheap MIG guns that come with machines don't have that ability, and they may or may not have O-rings the way that this is set up. Regarding the liner, I'm kind of surprised this liner does not have any part number or anything on the brass ferrule thing here, and I can't really tell what this is set up for. Now, the machine, from what I remember, came with liners that are good to 045 wire. If I wanted to run bigger diameter wire, I'd have to use a bigger liner. Now, it's really important that you buy the correct liner for the wire diameter you're running and your machine. And one of the cool things with liners is a lot of machines out there, not so much the Amazon specials, but the more name brand ones, have multiple liner options. Why that's a good thing is that if you want to attempt to do aluminum without a spool gun, if you run your whip real straight and use a Teflon liner, so this is like a spiraled steel, it's kind of like a spring. If you use a Teflon liner, sometimes you can get away with MIG welding without an expensive spool gun if you keep the whip straight and use a Teflon liner. Likewise, if you have any ambitions on doing auto body or welding super thin material, you really need a liner designed for 023, 024 wire. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see guys that want to run that super small wire make, is they don't swap the liner to something that'll work better with that, and you can get feeding issues and just it doesn't work as good. So be very mindful of that. And if you've never replaced this, which I guarantee you probably 80% of the people you guys watching this have never done it, you really want to do this. If you don't run a lot of wire, this isn't something that needs to be done yearly necessarily. But keep in mind, this, depending on the liner material, could rust. It collects debris in it. If you notice weird feeding issues where you can really feel the wire in the gun feeding through, just swap it out. These things are probably somewhere between 20 and 50, 60 bucks, depending on what welder they're for. It probably would solve a lot of headaches that you might have. Another important thing you want to do is inspect the welder. Now, ESAB is a really good company when it comes to serviceability. The way that they made this welder, it's very easy to look at parts. Case in point, this is the two gas solenoids. One, I believe, is for TIG, one is for MIG, and it's all visible as you open this up. Now, that's very important because if these hoses crack or leak, you should be able to find it fairly easy, because all the way from where it comes in, all the way through the machine into the MIG gun is all visible, and you can inspect it easily. Your machine probably is not set up like that. It's going to be on the opposite side of the machine. So take the panel off and just take a look at what you have. If you see any obvious cracks, or you're welding, you get porosity and you're just struggling, guess what? Open the case up and make sure that you don't have a leak internally. Likewise, it's a very good idea to take the case off your MIG machine at least annually and blow all of that conductive grinder dust out of it. I can't stress enough how important it is to keep the internals of your welder free of magnetic dust. Well, I think we're at the point where I can start reassembling this, and I'm going to talk about a couple other tips that you should look for. Here's a trick that might help you get the new liner in, because different MIG guns are set up differently. Some of them are easy to swap, some of them aren't. Or if you're looking at changing the neck of your MIG gun, what you want to do is put a piece of wire in here, feed it all the way through, and then you can put it in your liner. And now when you put it in there, you can wiggle the wire around. There we go. And it fed it right through without taking all this junk apart, and it's in there. Now, since I just put the liner that was in it back in it, it's cut to the correct length, but yours would likely stick out a lot further. and then you would have to trim it. But that little trick really helps out because sometimes it can be a real pain to get it through that small little hole there. Also, there's ports here that the gas can escape into the nozzle. You want to make sure those are free and don't have a bunch of junk covering them. Sometimes they're in a little different spot, but you should be able to figure that out pretty easily. Figured I'd open up this case. One of the things I've always liked about ESAB's designs is they're fairly simple and they're kind of like accessible. Now, the repairability of something like this is probably not the greatest simply because, well, where are you going to get like this component board from? It's going to be pretty difficult. But overall, if you can get parts, it's fairly easy to work on these. The smaller ones like the Rogue are a little bit tougher, but that's because they're such a compact design. Anyways, this in here is pretty clean. There's a lot of debris. Well, not a lot. There's some debris down here in the bottom. So I'm going to end up blowing this out. Since we're looking at this, I'm going to talk a little bit about the design of like this machine and other ones. The biggest thing with this machine that is a lot different than a lot of what you would find on the lower end is that all of the boards are completely coated to prevent that magnetic grinding dust from setting on here and just shorting out everything. And that's the biggest reason why a lot of cheaper welders simply don't last in harsh environments. Well, we finally made it to the end. We have a new contact tip in, a nozzle. Well, that was already previously cleaned. That's all good to go. All the set screws are tightened and the machine's tuned up. And I can't stress enough how important it is to do this. And if you go to your buddy's house or at work and you find that your machine that you're trying to use just isn't working right, one of the reasons is probably just a lack of maintenance. MIG machines have so many moving parts, so many O-rings, gaskets, you name it, that any of them, if they're bad, it can cause you a bad day and you can be very frustrated. I can't stress enough on that. I've been in so many situations with a poorly maintained wire welder and it just sucks. So hopefully now that you know kind of what to do, you'll go and maintain yours and hopefully your welds improve if they're not so good. But probably not, but you never know. Hey, until next time.